Tonight's homework video is going to be all about finding patterns in numbers. Alright, so let's talk about number sequences. So we have this word here, and this word is called sequence. And we know that a sequence is an order of something. We sometimes talk about in reading that we have a sequence of events. So that's like the order of the events that happen. We also have sequencing in numbers. So we have a pattern of numbers here, and we can tell right now that it is evens because I've told you that it's evens. But this pattern of numbers is known as a sequence because it happens in a particular order. So these numbers are all placed together because they are in a sequence. Now, as we can tell right here that this is counting by evens. 2, 4, 6. So if I wanted to continue the pattern, I could continue with 8, 10, 12, and so on. Now, how do I know that 8, 10, and 12 are my next numbers? Yes, I am skip counting by evens, but you could also say that I am adding 2. I'm adding 2. Adding 2. And I can continue to do that. When I add 2 every single time, this is known as a pattern or a rule. Okay? So a pattern or a rule. It is what I am doing to the sequence of the numbers in order to get it to the next number. So when we have a pattern or a rule, we can add, subtract, multiply, or divide. We can do any of these 4 operations in order to continue our sequence. Alright, so let's talk about our odds. Obviously, we know how to skip count by odds. 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. We can continue on, but one way that we know we are continuing, not only is we have odd numbers, but remember, what is our rule or pattern? So if I look at these numbers here, I need to determine what the rule is. How do I get to the next number? So I can see from 3 to 5, we're adding 2 again. And so from 5 to 7, again, I'm adding 2. And 7 to 9, I'm adding 2. So for the evens and the odds, both of my rules or patterns would be add 2. Alright, so let's find the pattern here. We have to figure out how we are getting to the next number. What I want you to do is I want you to study these numbers for a second. So first of all, our first numbers in our sequence are 12, 18, 24, and 30. Study these numbers for a second and try to find the relationship between these numbers. Am I adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing in order to get to the next number? Alright, so let's think. Can I multiply anything by 12 to get to 18? No, I can't. So that means that I'm not multiplying. I'm not dividing because I'm getting bigger numbers. And I'm not subtracting because, again, I'm getting bigger numbers. So that means I have to be adding. Let's find out what I'm adding in order to get to the next number. Well, to get from 12 to 18, I have to add 6. To get from 18 to 24, again, I add 6. So if my pattern is add 6, let's find the next 3 numbers in this pattern. So I'm going to jump from 30 to the next number. 30 plus 6 is 36. Then I'll jump from 36 to the next number. 36 plus 6 gives us 42. And then 42, add 6 to get to the next number, it gives us 48. Alright, let's find our next pattern. I want you to pause the video. I want you to figure out what the pattern is and find the next 3 numbers in the pattern. And in order to do that, remember, you have to find the rule. Okay, hopefully you paused the video and you figured out the rule. So to find the rule, I have to find the relationship between these numbers here. So I can tell that right now my numbers are decreasing, which means I have to either be dividing or subtracting. Now I can't divide 200 by anything to make 180, so I'm going to have to be subtracting. I know that if I jump from 200 to 180, I'm subtracting 20, and the same thing happens from 180 to 160 and 160 to 240. So my rule is subtract 20. The next three numbers in the pattern would be 120, 100, and 80. Okay, pause the video, figure out what the missing number is. Alright, hopefully you didn't have to pause the video for very long because this is a very easy one. Our missing number here is 50. And the way that I know that is because each time I move on in the pattern, I know my rule is subtract 10. Alright, so sometimes when we have patterns and sequences of numbers, we like to organize them in a table. Now, tables hold information. So we're going to have this problem with a table in it, and we're going to need to determine the rules in order to complete the table. It's going to be the same thing that we just did, but this time around, it's just going to be put in a different way. Alright, so we have our table here. And it says, multiply the number of books by blank to find the amount spent. This sentence right here is going to tell us what our rule is. So it's basically telling us multiply by what in order to get the next amount. So let's look at our numbers here. First of all, I see that I'm starting out day 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I skip to 8. This is really important to notice, that I'm skipping 5, 6, and 7. So when I'm looking for this number right here, I'm going to have to take into account that I'm skipping 3 days worth. Okay? Alright, next let's try to find what our rule is. So the problem is asking us to find the amount spent by multiplying the number of books by a number that we haven't figured out yet to find the amount spent. So we need to be looking at the relationship between the number of books and the amount spent. So I'm going to look here. How do I get 3 to 12? Well, I could add 9. 3 plus 9 equals 12. Let's try that. Add 9. Now, if that is really that's really our rule, then for the next one, I should still be able to add 9 and get the same answer. So does 9 plus 6 equal 24? No, it doesn't. So that means that can't be our rule. So it's not plus 9. How else could I get 3 to change into 12? Well, I can multiply by 4. Let's see if that holds up for all the rest of the sequence. 6 times 4 is 24. That works. 9 times 4 is 36, and 4 times 12 is 48. So that means that our rule must be multiply by 4. So then if we want to know how much money they spent on day 8, we know that we need to multiply 24 times 4. So 24 times 4 will give me the amount spent of 96. Alright, go ahead and do the same thing for this one. You are going to be multiplying the number of eggs by something. Remember, that's called our rule or pattern. We're going to be multiplying the number of eggs by our rule in order to find the number of muffins on day 9. We're missing this number right here. So you need to be looking at the relationship between the number of eggs and the muffins. Alright, pause the video and figure this one out. Okay, hopefully you paused the video. Let's solve this one together. So I need to figure out what number I'm multiplying in order to get to the number of muffins. So I need to look at the relationship between these two numbers. Okay? How can I get 2 to 12? Well, I know that I have to multiply, so I need to multiply 2 times 6 in order to get to 12. Multiply by 6 is our rule because it helps us get to all the other numbers in the sequence. So I have to multiply the number of eggs by 6, meaning our rule is multiply by 6 to find the number of muffins. So if I'm multiplying by 6, I know I have to multiply 18 by 6, and the number of muffins on day 9 will be 108. All right, great work. It's time to now go to Canvas and take your quiz. Make sure that you have completed your notes while you were watching this video.